which created really big overheads for us and really big expenditure. I was looking at the bank and I was like, I really don't think we can continue.
Okay, good morning, Chris Worden, Director First Podcast. Today we are joined by a director who recently has used our services. You've probably seen us all over the internet, but I'm obviously going to tell you all sorts of things that you may believe untrue. So what we like to do is we like to invite directors coming on to the podcast to sort of share with us their experience, the strength, the hope, the worries, the hard bits, the challenges. You know, we're transparent here. We want you to know that we're different from most firms. So today I would like to welcome to the podcast Charlene. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, listen, Charlene, let's dive straight into it. So can you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business before you had to look at insolvency as an option?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Charlene. I was a company director of Head to Bows Boutique Limited. We sell children's toys and accessories on the internet via social media. And last year, fortunately, we went viral on TikTok Shop, which created really big overheads for us and really big expenditure. So we come to a point where things were getting really, really bad, and I didn't really know where else to turn. And I saw you guys on TikTok, and I gave you a call, and we are here where we are today.
So you are a TikToker, aren't you?
Yeah.
In the real sense. How did that come about?
So I originally started my business from home, making hair bows for children, and we started on Facebook, and then Facebook was dying. So TikTok had come along and said, you know, do you want to join forces with us? So I said, yeah, okay. And I jumped on.
You know, it's interesting that, right? When you go back to sort of 2019 and 2020, we did really well with Facebook. We had loads of reach. Our adverts were really good at converting. And then 2021, it died a death. And you know what? We're on every platform because you've got to be. But this year, TikTok, well, I'd say this year, certainly since January, I've seen TikTok have been really good for us. You know, we get a lot of reach on TikTok because they're a fairly new platform, aren't they? So they want to push people out, push that stuff out there. And, you know, it's, I can't get over the amount of small businesses that don't use these types of platforms to get their product out. It astounds me. It's free. You know, you don't have to be. We were just having a laugh then about lighting. You know, I have got a face that is not made for TV, right? I've got no lighting. I've got no makeup. I just get on the camera and natter. And
Your handsome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But that's all I need to do. You know what I mean? To get my service out there. And because not everyone in my sector does this. There's a few that are half decent, but most of them, they just stick behind the suit. So listen, a tip for everyone out there, one of the best ways to get your name out there is to start sticking your head above the parapet and doing these types of videos.
That's how I found you guys on social media. And that wasn't an ad, it was literally organically on the FYP. In fact, listening.
Yeah, frightening, isn't it? Listen, I said this yesterday, I can have a thought and I don't remember talking to anyone about that thought. And then it's on my Facebook feed. I'm thinking, whoa, how's that happened? Listen, how did you feel when because let's backtrack a bit. You've gone on TikTok, you've gone on TikTok Shop, and you've gone viral, which had a lot of good points, but it also sounded like it had a couple of challenges as well. Talk us through that. How did that happen?
So we were selling mystery boxes, and in September, it became a trend on TikTok to have one of our mystery boxes, and we sold 20,000 units in 2 days. And the manpower behind us, it just wasn't enough. So we was having to pay everyone to try and, you know, fulfill the demand, plus trying to get extra, you know, materials. working through the night. There was a lot of mistakes that were happening, which cost us money. Like, in general, yes, it's great going viral, but I think what people don't think about is the implications after, when you've got your overheads will go just as high as going viral and your sales do. And we were a small business, so we're a small business to go viral. Actually, everyone thinks it's the dream, but actually it's a bit of a nightmare, if I'm honest. And what had happened, we were panic buying, we were skinting out of all of our stock. Our overheads have got so huge, it actually ruined the company, if I'm honest.
It's and you know what? It's a warning to people, isn't it? It's like, I was always told off a guy. He says, "Chris, you've got to pace the growth.
Yes.
You know, pace the growth, because to go big, it's a lot more headache. It's a lot of cash. You've got to put the cash in, haven't you? You've got to put the cash in, and to go. I mean, just out of context, that was 20,000 orders in 2 days. The month previous, how many orders did you do?
2,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I imagine you learned a lot of lessons from that.
Yeah, a lot of lessons for sure. I mean, no one could really anticipate it was going to happen, but at the same time, you know, I should have, because I saw the sales coming in, I was like, yeah, keep whacking more on, when actually we should have just said, no, we've sold out, wait for our resources to rebuild and then continue on the virality. But at the time, we thought we'll strike the iron while it's hot, and unfortunately it kind of ruined us a little bit.
How did you go viral?
So a content creator, quite a big content creator, had one of our mystery boxes. She's got quite a big platform. She's got 1 million followers. She started the trend. So then every content creator on TikTok, it became a trend to have one of our boxes. So not only was it just me selling, also the content creators were too, and it just created an absolute monster.
Wow. Wow. You know, like, how did you sort of first feel? How did you feel when you first realized that actually this is a bad thing? What was going through your head? How long did it take to go, shit, maybe this was a bit of a poison chalice?
It was actually on my birthday when we went viral. So I was really happy, like, oh yeah, we've gone viral. You know, like, I was really happy. And I'll say about not even a day after, I was started to see the carnage that it was creating amongst the staff, amongst the team, seeing all the shelves empty. I was like, this isn't good. Like, this is actually not good. So I rang my suppliers. My suppliers were great. They were supporting me through the growth, but the infrastructure just was not coping. I was breaking my staff, and yeah, probably about a day, I was like, oh, this isn't good.
So what was like, you know, that was the day after your birthday. You go viral. Day after, you're like, oh God, maybe we're not set up for this. Then what happened? How long was it before that sort of made you think, oh, actually, we may not get through this now? What was happening in the interim?
So in the interim, after we went viral, after I saw the carnage it was creating, I was looking at the bank. So when I was looking at the bank account, as quick as the money was coming in, the money was going out. So I was like, we've got wages at the end of this month, and right now I'm not sure how we're going to be able to balance it, because TikTok was supposed to give us some money back, which they hadn't at that time. It took about 3 months. So it was a really wobbly month, just that month alone. So in the October, I was like, I don't know, we was in our peak time of the year as well. And I was thinking, I don't know how we're going to be able to afford the wage bill. Money was coming through, but that was going straight onto materials. So it was scary. It was a really scary time, I'm not going to lie.
And so how did you get through those next few months?
Just working hard, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Plugging through. I killed the algorithm, so I made our boxes sell out, so we had time to catch up. The suppliers have given me credit as well, so that helped us with cash flow. I was working. I work hard anyway, but I was working extra hours, extra lifetime to try and make sure that we could get money into the company as well. I mean, we got there. It was tight, but it was a little bit of, you know, having to rob Peter to pay Paul, really, if I'm honest. Some suppliers, I was like, oh, you're going to have to wait, you know, a little bit of extra time. I think one supplier had to wait 2 months for the money. You know, it was, we were surviving, but it was tough.
And was you communicating with suppliers? Was you talking to them? Was you telling them what was going on? Because you mentioned that suppliers supported you through this, and a lot of suppliers will, won't they? I mean, I know this has ended up in an insolvency, but how did you? Most people are really scared to pick up the phone to a supplier and say, "I'm having a problem right now." How did you find that?
If I'm honest, because I've got such good relationships with my suppliers, I was actually okay. You know, I explained to them the situation. I was very open and honest. I've always been, even down to my platform, down to how I run a company, I've always been very open and honest. And I think it's important to have that open and honest conversation with people, because they're only going to try and help and resolve things back. So, and it has, you know, it did work in my favour. So, yeah. As I say, I was okay, but I can imagine there's a lot of people out there that would struggle to have that conversation, because when you see, you know, net 30 days on an invoice and it's due, you know, tomorrow, it's quite easy to bury your head in the sand and just think, oh, I'll just wait till I've got the money to pay it. But actually having that conversation does make the world of the difference, because they get off your back a little bit and they'll say, right, okay, we'll give you an extra month, or we'll give you an extra couple of weeks. And that just gives you a little bit of breathing space, doesn't it, in order for you to make sure that you've got that money there to pay them.
What sort of directors don't they perhaps they don't always see it from the supplier side. They're thinking, "Oh my God, I can't pay this supplier. I'm not going to speak to them." But actually, the supplier has lots of directors. Companies will do that. So if you're the director that goes, "Listen, I'm struggling because of this, that, and the other," they've actually got a bit of relief that you're communicating with them, because they've got two problems here. Problem number one is they may not get paid an invoice. But problem number two that worries them, that's a bigger problem, is what if I lose this client forever?
That's
So
right.
they're gonna try and even if it's a case of, listen, I can't pay, but I'm going to call again in a few weeks. Communication with creditors is critically important. You will feel better for doing it, and it's just like, you've got to take a deep breath in and get it out there, because that you will, in 99% of cases, you'll be so surprised at how they respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They were all incredibly good throughout everything. You know, back then to, you know, recently. You know, they've been very, very understanding, and they've been really, really good. And I think the difference that made is just having those conversations and being open and honest with them about the situation. Because at the same time, you don't, you know, they're humans too. They run businesses too. And I think people forget that. I think people forget, yeah, all right, they might be a supplier turning over millions, but they're still a human being. You still need to be able to treat them how you'd want to be treated. And that's how I've always done it. That's my ethos anyway.
And I have a lot of the suppliers continue to support you in your new venture.
Yes. Yes,
Brilliant.
they all have.
Yeah. I mean, that is great news, because that's another worry that people have, is like when liquidations is the only option, but that there is a business that can grow out of this. You know, the lessons have been learned, the market has changed. You know, a lot of people are looking at insolvency because it's not because they have done anything wrong, it's because we have had a pandemic, cost of living crisis has gone up, you've gone viral overnight, and you just couldn't keep up with these are just things that blindside businesses and force them down the route of insolvency. But starting again, learning the lessons, and I see this, people can come back stronger. They've learned the lessons, and maintaining relationships with suppliers, that can happen. Doesn't happen in every case, but I think the fact that you've been communicated with them, you've been transparent with them throughout the process, they've probably taken a view and going, you know what, this does happen. Let's support the company in the new venture. When did you first start to realize that actually maybe I can't outwork this? When was it was like, maybe I do need to look at some type of insolvency option?
I'm going to be honest. So the business was actually up for sale, and we had some buyers that had come along to purchase the business. when they've done their due diligence, I can't say that word very well, but when they've done their due diligence and their checks, and rightly or wrongly, which is a mistake that I made in the company because I was so busy focused on sales, I weren't really looking at the numbers. And when they turned around and said, you know, you're in this amount of debt, give us a stock list. We gave them the stock list and we're like, hold on a minute, the stock's only worth 30 grand and the majority of it's, you know, it's seasonal stock. It's not suitable for this time of year. So it's dead stock. And I was like, hold on a minute, we're in trouble here. We didn't have enough money in the bank. We could barely cover wages. I was like, I'll be honest, at this point, when it comes to this realization, I was thinking we are in a bit of trouble. And then the sale had gone, it hadn't gone through. The buyers had pulled out. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to rescue this. I had nothing behind me. I mean, I already owed the suppliers money. I couldn't go back to them asking for more money because they've been so good over the last few months supporting me while I was getting through this wobbly stage. I was looking at the bank and I was like, I really don't think we can continue. Like, I'd had nothing. It was like trying to deliver a mountain when all I had was a grain of sand. You know, it was tough. It was a really hard realization to come to because I've always been about fighting for the dream, really going for it. You know, we can get through anything. But to come to that realization, actually, you know, you're not a miracle worker and this isn't going to be able to be rescued. It was really tough. It was really tough for me to come to that realization because I absolutely love what I do. And the thought of losing it and the staff as well, it was awful. It was a really horrible time.
Listen, I understand because I've been there. I went through an insolvency, and I'm like an avid reader of personal development. So like all my life, I've done, you know, the Tony Robbins, the goals, affirmations. You know, I love all that stuff, and it tells us that yeah, we can get through anything. That is an absolute curse in these scenarios.
Yeah.
Because what happened with me is I knew if I were looking at it rationally, in December, before I closed my business, there was a change of legislation. The game was over. It was over. I had an amount of money in the bank. And my head, because I was awash with personal development, was I'll fight through this. I'll work through this. I could do anything. And actually 3 months later, it was like, shit, I made a bad call there. So I say to people like, listen, look at things as they are, not worse than they are, not better than they are. And actually pull them back to the numbers. And you said another good thing there, right? Listen, I'm the owner of this business. We're not a massive business. We do quite a lot of insolvency work for a company of our size. But I am focused mainly on marketing and speaking to clients, right? Sean speaking to clients, Emily speaking to clients, getting people through the system, right?
Yeah.
Numbers, okay, is something I'm a kind of guy. I go, right, okay, well, we've done that many appointments this month, and I did this for ages, and our costs are about that. Yeah, we're flying, we're doing okay. Oh shit, it's been a bit quiet. And actually, what I've had to do is I've had to get better at understanding numbers. And I actually did a course with a guy I knew to help me understand the numbers and also understand my numbers, like literally getting that profit and loss, spending a bit of time every month going, right, where have we spent money? I did an exercise just looking at what I was spending personally. This blew my mind, right? You know, like every time you tap the card at Co-op or Morrison's, and I've got 2 Spotify's, and I'm spending 30 quid a month to subscriptions on Amazon Prime, and I'm like, why am I paying for that on my person? And it was like frightening, like literally to go through line by line. And guess what? This is the shit I tell people to do. And then when I did it myself, like I hadn't done it for 6 months, I'm like, and I really did it. I'm thinking, oh my God. So that's a lesson for everybody. You know, it's like, you've got to make time for the numbers.
You have to.
And I imagine that's something that you're going to be implementing in version 2.
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think for me, because I was so focused on sales, and rightly or wrongly, because I am a product of my own business, when I'm on that camera, I wasn't keeping an eye on what was going on behind me. It's going to be different this time, because if you're not making a profit and you're not keeping an eye on those numbers, it is so easy. Like what you said, it's so easy to be spending money that you haven't even got. In this transition, when I've been going through this process, and I actually was having a look at some of the things we were paying for, we didn't even need. And I mean, that, I was thinking, well, that's £100 there that we didn't need to spend. That's £300 there that we didn't need to spend. Why are we spending money on this? Why are we spending money on that? When actually I should have done that. I should have been looking at that all the time. All right, rightly or wrongly, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you don't necessarily have the time because you're focused on sales. But the numbers are just as important as the sales. If you're not making a profit, if you're turning over £1 million a year, but you're making, which was my case, you're turning over 1.2 million a year, yet you're making losses after losses each year, there's a problem. It's all good selling a million, products, but if you're making a loss of £1 in each one, that's £1 million loss. So the numbers are just as important as the sales.
A mate of mine said to me once, he says, listen, it's like a bucket, you throw all this stuff in the bucket and there's just holes letting it out. And I've been through that, it's like, and I want to add to this as well. It's like when you are like, it's a similar business model to me. Like, I make no bones about it. I am out there putting content out, and it's free content, super sneaky, because no one else really does it like me. And if the shit hits the fan, hopefully I've built up enough goodwill that you use one of our IPs. Like that's it. So mine is very much content driven, and I'm in sales. If I'm talking to somebody, my aim is they might be speaking to a really big firm with a guy in a suit who's talks differently to me, and I've got to convince that director, actually you're better off working with me. So that's the stuff I enjoy doing. I really, really like it. Numbers give me an absolute headache. They really do. Looking at spreadsheets. Now, I read a book called The E-Myth years ago, and it's quite a famous book, this, but it says most small businesses are destined to fail because the business owner is the worker. They're really good at what they do. I know I'm good at what I do. I know you're good at what you do. But the bits that we aren't good at, it could be the numbers, it could be the HR, it could be the operational side of things. So if I'm not good at that, I've got to get someone, either really the numbers, I want to understand them myself. For years, I was like, I'll give it someone else to deal with. I actually want to understand them today. But I also have someone else who's doing my books who will give me that report every month. Because I can't do everything. I've got to be able to delegate certain things as well. When you sort of realize that, okay, I don't see a way out of this. What was going through your head at that point? The fears, concern, what was the worries?
I mean, so many worries. I was worried about the staff because, I've worked alongside these people for a long time. I knew one in particular had booked a holiday, and I'm thinking, how are they going to afford their holiday? I was thinking about, what's going to happen with the debt. I was worried about ruining relationships with my suppliers. I've worked alongside my suppliers for years, really good friends of mine. And then as this process was going on, I didn't realise there was actually a personal guarantee on one of the business credit cards, which meant they were going to come from my home. So I was like, I was not in a good place. I'm going to be honest. I was not in a good place. I was lost. I felt like the worst person in the world. I was going to make me emotional with this. I felt like the worst person in the world, and I felt like everyone hated me. This is me being completely honest and straight.
I get
it. The staff are going to hate me. My suppliers are going to hate me. My partner's going to hate me because our house could potentially be lost. It was an awful time, and it wasn't nice. It wasn't a nice place to be. It's probably one of the worst places I've been in my life, if I'm honest. And that's not me being dramatic.
No, listen, I get it. And I remember with me, listen, I'm from a council estate. You know what I mean? I have nothing, if I fall, nobody catches me. You know what I mean? And like when I had to put my business into liquidation, I had my mates working for me, my family working for me.
Wow.
And actually looking back at it, right, that was real. And I had a lot of pride, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, oh God, I failed. What are people going to think?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I kept people on much longer than I should have done in my business. And I remember, like in the day, I'm busy me, and I could be a busy fool. You know what I mean? Just because I did not want to sit back and actually feel the emotions of what were going through me, because I couldn't process them. The business were over, but for 3 months, I'm running around like a lunatic, trying to resurrect something that's died. And I always remember I'd go home at night and I'd be at home with me. And at the time, I had one little girl. It was probably about 1 or 2 then. And when the phone had stopped and I'm not checking my emails every 30 seconds, then it would dawn on me and I couldn't sleep. And that for me, it was at night that I started to research that, you know, I'm not an idiot, me, you know what I mean? I've always done okay, right?
Yeah.
I would always figure stuff out. But
Same.
this world of insolvency, it was like, oh my God, I'd be reading all these websites and one said different to the other, and I'd come off and I'd be so confused. And I didn't sleep. My mental health was in the toilet. I was drinking more than I should, you know what I mean? Because I was like, well, fuck it. You know, for those few hours, I'd be, you know, and the day after, the problems are there, along with a hangover.
Yeah.
And it were horrible, you know what I mean? It was literally, it was probably one of the worst times in my life as well. But do you know what? I look back on it now, and it was a distant memory. You know,
Yeah.
it's part of. Sadly, I think for a lot of people, if you look at the stats, I think they say, I don't know what the stat is. I'm going to throw it out there that 95% of businesses don't make it past 5 years.
Mm.
So we're not the only ones. Like we're not the only people. The key is really to learn the lessons and go forth, add to the economy. But I'm going to dive into some of these points you made. Right, staff. That was my worry as well. It's like, oh my God, they're my friends, they're my family, flipping it. They've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
And what they actually ended up doing, my staff, is they got better jobs. I don't know if they got better jobs, but they got jobs very quickly. They were
Yeah.
really good. And I look at it like, you know what? Setting off, you know, you're setting off people into, you know, the world that are better for coming into contact with you. What happened with yours, Charlene? What's the plan with staff?
Exactly the same. They've all found jobs bar one.
Yeah.
I think she's waiting for me, if I'm
Yeah.
honest. I think she's waiting for me, bless her. But yeah, they've all found jobs. Some of them have found, one of them is a very good example. She's now working for her family business, and now, you know, running a shop, which, you know, is amazing for her. There's other members of staff that have gone on to Pastures New, earning more money, a better job, a lot happier. So actually, from a very dark place, you know, which was an extremely tough time for all of them, the majority of them have come out okay. There's a couple that are still a little bit not necessarily where they need to be, but they're still in employment. They've still, you know, moved on. They've still found somewhere. And I think finding something for now, they're going to find something better. But the majority of the people that did work for me are doing okay. So, which makes me feel better, if I'm honest. And as I say, I'm going to be completely transparent. I've never lied ever in my life. I wasn't very well liked when it came to the conclusion that this was going to happen, because of course at that time they're panicking, well, how am I going to be able to live? But actually in this transition time, and they're seeing that I'm coming back, they're like, if you need help, mate, you don't even need to pay me. You need help to fight for your dream, we're coming. And that, like, I'm trying not to get emotional, but that alone means the absolute world, because at a time when I felt like everyone hated me and I've put them in a really tough position, the fact that they now see that I'm fighting for the dream and they're saying, we don't even want to be paid, we just want to help. You know, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And I'm very, very grateful.
And just for people who are watching there, right? So if a business ends, right, and sadly staff have to be made redundant, the government, they will step in, They will pay statutory redundancy if they've been there over 2 years. If they've not been over there over 2 years, they're still entitled to claim holiday pay pro rata, also notice pay, and even unpaid wages. So again, if you worry your staff, you've got to reach out and get advice on this. We've sort of already touched on suppliers, because everyone has this. And listen, it's never nice a supplier not getting paid, right? But sometimes it does happen.
Yeah.
But if you are a customer who's been has just done your best and it's not worked out, there is a bloody good chance that that supplier will work with you again, because again, there's two problems that this supplier has. One, they're not getting paid the money, but two, they're going to lose the client. Okay,
that's right.
It doesn't happen in every scenario, but I think if you are faced with this, if you're faced with insolvency and you speak to that supplier, you keep them updated. You know, you do what you can when you can, and it doesn't work out. It's not to say they won't support a new business.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I was talking to you guys. I mean, you guys have been absolutely fantastic when it comes to things like this. And it was Sean. He's like, you just got to front it, mate. And I was like, do you know what? I've got more front than Southend Beach. Like, I'll give it a go. You know, the worst thing they can say to me is no. So I was like, do you know what? This is what's happened. I kept him up to date. I was giving him weekly to monthly. It depended on what time. Anytime there was an update, I gave it to them. Every single which way, I've just kept communicative with them. When I decided it was going to go into liquidation, I was like, well, hold on a minute. If I'm going to start again, I need them. Like, my suppliers are top of the food chain. I can't go anywhere else. I was like, do you know what? I'm going to front it. And speaking to them, they said, the majority of them said three things to me. Have you learnt your lesson? What's your plans going forward? And good luck. Yeah. Honestly, they didn't. They was like, you know, it is what it is. And one of them said to me, "It's a numbers game." Over the last 3 years, we've done like £500,000 worth of business with you. Yes, we've lost £15,000. It's covered by insurance, which means it's cost us £1,000. But if you look over the last 3 years, the amount of business we've done with you, £1,000 nothing. We're going to claw that money back. You continue to work with us. So I was like, do you know what? That's quite true. And it kind of gave me a little bit more confidence to reach out to the rest of them.
People don't get it. Most firms, big firms, are insured. And if you've been with them for a long time, they've made a fortune out of you. And like I say, I'm not saying, right. All I'm saying to you is it's not what you think most of the time. And I bet that was an eye opener for you. It was like, wow, okay. And again, but if you had to pick the phone up and gone, listen, this is where I'm at, and they'd have just got a letter from a liquidator, that's different. It's like, bloody hell. But you've been on the phone, you've had the tough conversation, and they've been supportive.
Yeah, I throughout this whole transitional period, you know, when the company's going into liquidation, I've just been open and honest, and it was the best thing I could have done, because they're all like, you know what, we want to support you. Go for it, girl. You know, and I've learnt the lesson. You know, I'm only human. We're all human. We all make mistakes. No one can necessarily run a business and all of a sudden become a millionaire overnight. You know, the success isn't always linear, and that's something I've definitely learned for sure. So, you know, it isn't always just a rocket to the top. Sometimes you get wobbly moments, and as long as you deepening them relationships with your suppliers, deepening those relationships with the support around you, and just being honest, I think, if I'm honest, I've got more respect by me being honest and upfront with them than me burying the head in the sand and, like you say, just getting a letter from the liquidators.
There was all, and sort of your final point on what your fears were, and this is a biggie, okay, and it's personal guarantees. So, like, I've got a load of cases on my desk. I would say the majority have signed a personal guarantee, and that could be a funding circle, Fleximize, iWalker, Capital on Tap, the all whole manner of business overdraft, business credit card, Travis Perkins, Juicens, you know, all those type of things. And it sort of goes, if a director's willing to sign a personal guarantee, they like you say, they're putting their house on the line. It shows that they're committed to the business. And I think the problem for people is what happened in 2020 obviously COVID happened, loads of people had loads of cash, sat at home doing nothing, and the economy boomed. Like the back end of 2020, 21, 22 to a degree, there was a wave. There was a wave of available money out there. And as a business, the only way they could capitalize on that wave was to take more money, buy more stock. And most of this money, they had to sign personal guarantees. Okay.
Yeah.
So they took the chance. 23, 24, it's a bloodbath. Cost of living gone up. People are spending less. It's a perfect storm. And these personally guaranteed loans, credit card suppliers, they're now getting called in. And some of them, not all of them, they're quite high interest rates. So when sales are down, overheads are up. Again, that just that causes huge financial stress. So if you're director going out there, I know this, by the way, I signed a personal guarantee. I say it, really funny story. Wasn't funny at the time. Me and my co-director at the time, when we had a business together, we had a 25 grand overdraft with Lloyd's.
Oh, wow.
He at the time was better advised than me, because he went and offered them 3 grand as full and final, and they accepted it and come to me for the other 22, right? I could have strangled him at the time. We fell out like for years. We proper fell out. We were best mates. We're really good mates again now, thankfully. But at the time, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house. So for me, it was really easy to do. I just had to get on the phone to them and restructure it. It's never appeared on my credit score. Never, ever. And I've just paid it over years and years and years. So how did you deal? What were your worries about the PGs? I know it's fairly fresh for you. Have you started to do the negotiation process with this company?
No, not yet. So I'm going to be honest. So when I was communicating to all the suppliers, I was also speaking to Capital on Tap, and I was just honest, and I said, look, my mental health is bad at the minute. Like, it's really bad. So they actually referred me to a specialist team. So now at the minute, every other week, they give me a ring and they just see how I am, if I'm honest. At the minute, they haven't mentioned about money. They just want to make sure that I'm okay. And I think maybe in their world, making sure that I'm all right, there's a chance that they're going to get their money, let's be honest. Yeah. But actually, it's quite nice because, you know, then my phone isn't blowing up. They're not constantly calling me. I'm not constantly getting letters through the door. I know that my commitment is to answer that call every other week. And even they said, they haven't mentioned money, but they said, at the end of the day, when you're ready, we'll come to some sort of agreement. And it's not gone on my credit score either, even though it defaulted months ago now. It's not gone on my credit score. And when I spoke to them, thanks to the help of you and Sean, there was like, because I was in pieces when I rang you guys, I'm going to be honest. They were like, listen, you and Sean was like, oh, you don't need to worry. Like, but actually speaking to them, even they've said, you don't need to worry. All the time you're keeping communicative with us, you'll be okay. So, yeah, I'm no deal yet, but I will get there. I feel confident now.
You will. Listen, they just want their money back. Like, although you've signed a personal guarantee, they definitely don't want to be dragging anyone through courts. And as long as, and there's a number of ways you can deal with it. And again, this might not be with Capital on Tap, but some people will get a lump sum, like my partner at the time, and go, listen, that's all you're having. And a lot of them, some of them will take that as full and final. And others, it'll be a case of, well, I'm skint at the moment. I've got a new business getting up the ground. So I'm going to pay you minimal for 6 months, and then we'll review it and step it up. And you'll just pay it back over ever and a day. But the key thing is again, you communicate with them and you sort of answer that phone. Listen, how did you feel? So you found out about us on TikTok, right? What made you decide to work with us at Director first?
If I'm completely honest, I just thought you guys were really friendly and really relatable. And for me, people buy into people, and I thought, you know what? These blokes are all right. You know, I felt like I could talk to you guys. I felt like you're quite, maybe it's because you're Northern, like you come across quite warm. And I was like, do you know what? At a time when I was at my lowest, I just needed a bit of a chirpy voice at the end of the phone, if I'm honest. And then I thought, you know what? I spoke to a couple of others, but it's the when you hear the word liquidators, you think, like you say, all suited. You think very formal, very like, what's the word without sounding horrible? Like really like, not. I want to say snobby, but that's a really, really negative word. But you know what I mean? Like really, like to the book. No, it's this
there
way.
there are some like that. Listen, when I went through this, I went to see some big firms, and geez, I walked out thinking I'm definitely going to jail. I hadn't really done anything wrong, you know what I mean? I'm going to jail, I'm losing my house, I'm going to end up in the skip. Or I got spoke to like a naughty schoolboy. You know what I mean? And obviously you've worked with. How have you found the liquidator to deal with? You know, have they been as scary and as pompous as you thought they might be?
Not pompous, that's a good word. That's what I was thinking. I was saying snobby. Pompous is a good word. No, not at all. Not at all. Sean was the first person I spoke to, and I burst into tears because I really didn't know where to turn. And Sean is, you both, you've been like my knights in shining armor, if I'm honest. And not only have you helped me with the process, you've also helped me emotionally as well. And I think it's because where you've been through it yourself, you understand how it feels. So I would say when it comes to talk to you guys, it's also like the personal touch to it. Whereas it's not like it's just a company, you know, you're going through the emotions, it wasn't like that with you guys. And I think what drew me in is, you know, watching your content and seeing your relatable people and your real human beings, and having that first chat with Sean, and I was just crying down the phone. You know,
Sean's my brother, by the way, for those who are watching. He works with me. He's my younger brother.
Yeah, he is, bless him. He's lovely. I love Sean. And you, Chris, I do. But genuinely, you guys have been absolutely incredible helping me through this process, and I'm ready. I'm ready to fight again. Like I never thought 4 months ago the person I was now would be the person that I am now. It's night and day. And I'm like, yeah, do you know what? Let's go for it. H2B take 2.
And that's it. Like when you're going through the pain, you can't focus on what you have to. Like as a business owner, I know what my job is, and it's actually to get clients into my business, and I do that by having lots and lots of conversations, and I put out lots of content. If I've got other stuff going on, right, my head is not on that. It's dealing with problems. And what a liquidation will generally do, it will refocus that director on whatever they're going to do next. It's a line in the sand, isn't it? It's business that's finished. It's done. We move on.
Yeah, exactly that. And you both gave me hope for the future, because I didn't even know that I could continue on. I thought that was it. You know, dream gone. But no, it's not the case. And I'm so grateful.
Well, listen, we're happy for you putting your faith in us, and we're just going to talk about the process. And what this is called is a pre-pack. Okay, so a business has become insolvent for whatever reason. We're going to look at the reason why it's become insolvent, because if we don't understand why it's become insolvent, it's very hard to learn the lessons. And if you learn the lessons and go, you know what, I've got a business here, but it's in a different guise, and maybe I'm going to streamline here, I'm going to make some efficiencies here, then maybe a pre-pack would work for your business. And what you do here is you've got to follow process, you've got to engage with the insolvency professional at all times, but you can purchase the assets of your business as long as you have some type of valuation done. And that valuation could be a formal agent coming to value your business. It could be you've had a written quote of somebody in your industry to say, well, your stuff's worth that. And as long as the insolvency practitioner is kept informed, you can start again. Like you just because you liquidate a business, it doesn't mean you're getting banned as being a director. It doesn't mean you won't be able to be a company director again. It does happen. Directors do get disqualified, but generally it's the most extreme cases, and they get to start again, learn the lessons, and there is life after liquidation. Okay, listen, we're back again. I don't get changed in the middle of podcasts generally.
But we had a bit of a technical issue the other day, and we've had to jump on a call a couple of days later to finish the podcast off. So, Charlene, people who are watching, they will not know what's gone on. So we're just going to crack in, and the question I wanted to ask for you really is, what aspects of our service at Direct to First did you find most helpful and reassuring? And you've said some wonderful things about us, but you know, is there anything specifically that you thought, right, that was great?
I think it was the personal touch that you guys added, you know, as in you've been there, you listened, and I think I said earlier, not only were you doing your job, you was also there for me emotionally, which is really hard to find as for a service, especially this type of world. Do you know what I mean? And it was really lovely. It was the personal touch that made all the difference.
Thank you very, very much. Really kind words. I mean, looking back on your business, okay, and we have touched on this again, but I'm going to ask a question. What would you have done differently, or what are you going to do differently in version 2?
In version 2, the things I'm going to do differently, this is going to sound really harsh, but I'm going to just be brutal. And keep an eye on the numbers. You know, it's all good if you've got the sales coming in, but like I said earlier, if you're turning over £1 million and you're losing, you know, 10 grand, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. So keep an eye on the numbers, making sure I've got the right people behind me as well. I think where I worked before, I think sometimes because the business grew so rapidly, we were just at some point just grabbing anyone to help us. And you know, mistakes were then being made and so on and so forth. So make sure I've got the right people behind me, giving the right training as well, making sure that people have got the right training and not grow so fast. You know, try and do it steadily rather than go off.
Okay. You know, like if another business owner is watching this and they're starting to get nervous, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, sales are slowing down, costs are going up, what advice would you give them?
Don't lose faith. That would be the one thing that got me through all of this, is holding on to faith. Whether you don't have to be religious, you don't have to believe in God, but just hold faith that things will turn out okay and keep strong. And that's the only thing that got me through, I've got to be honest.
You know, I've had it, you know, if I'm going through challenges, some advice I've always been given is try and keep it in the day. You know what I mean? I've only got, when Rome's burning, I've just got to get through that day, you know, and try and do the next right thing. You know what I mean? And just keep it as simple as that. What's the next right thing that I can do today? And you know, sometimes you've got to put the outcome to whatever it is out there. You know, all I can do is what I can do that day. You know, I can't worry about him. I can't worry about her. What can I do to get through this day?
Oh, absolutely. It's always worrying about things that are in your control and things that you can turn around. If you're worrying about things that are out of your control, it's just wasted headspace. And as I always say, there's no such thing as a bad life. It's just a bad day.
Yeah, I like that. With regards to liquidation is now behind you, okay? You've always got a smile on your face, but how do you feel now that the liquidation is done and dusted?
I feel like a new woman. I feel reborn. I've got to be honest. I feel ready to go. I've learned. I've made mistakes, and I'm a person which many entrepreneurs are. I'm all about self-growth and self-development. And now liquidation is behind me. It's almost like when you come out of a relationship, you're like, right, this time round, I'm going to look for this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. It's almost like the same thing, just in a different way.
And listen, what are your plans moving forward? You know, personally, professionally, who's coming out at the other end here? What's the plans for the future, Charlene?
The plans for the future is to come back bigger and better, learn from my mistakes, make sure within myself that people always get the best version of me, because I felt last time I used to let the pressure get to me sometimes, and it would come out in, you know, whether it's me being moody, me being upset. I don't want to be back to being that person. So on the self-development, I want to work on my organisation, pressure getting to me, and just being able to make sure that I can take a breath.
Yeah. Listen, it's honestly, right, I'm so chuffed that you've come on and shared your story, because you have been like a perfect client from our end. You took advice, you took guidance, you did what we asked when we suggested it. And yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I'm really grateful for your business, because you know, this is how I feed my family. And you could have used anyone out there. And I'm so grateful that you used us. Charlene, thank you for coming on the podcast. You're an absolute star. It goes without saying, if you ever need anything, we're still here for you. Is there anything you'd like to say to sum up?
Same to you. Thank you so much. I was in such a dark, miserable place, and you guys were absolutely knights in shining armour, and I won't forget that for the rest of my life. So I'm genuinely, from deep down, bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful to you guys for helping me through this process.
Listen, God bless you, Charlene. Thank you very much. Catch you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.